Hello and welcome to what is part 2 actually of a video we are making about peat compost versus peat-free compost, which is obviously preferable. It will soon be the only thing you can get for gardening, and it's got to be better for the planet than ripping out peat bogs. So I say this is part 2. I'll put a link somehow, I'll figure out how to do it to the first part of the video. But what we basically did, we took a range of peat-free and peat compost, which are here. Use Clover Peat. This is a retail product, Westland New Horizon, peat-free. This is a professional product by Melcourt. They also do a retail product that you can buy, peat-free growing media. An interesting one is Dalefoot peat-free wall compost. It's made from comfrey and bracken and other sustainable things. And then, again, professional grade peat-free grow media from Sinclair. And these plants here on the floor were the first things we did, just as a bit of a trial for our own interest really. We took a herbaceous plant, a shrub, a bedding plant, a typical summer shrub and a tomato. At this point we only had 3 composts to choose from, to play with, which was the Westland New Horizon here, the peat as a control one, something we've always used and is traditional over the years, and we had the Sinclair peat-free. Since then, with the extra ones, we've just used tomatoes, and if you watch the first video, you'll find we started with some little scraggly little tomatoes, all the same size, same variety, and we put them in a different compost. We had 4 plants for each type of compost, and in 2 of their pots we put the same amount of fertiliser, a controlled release pellet fertiliser, and in 2 of the pots we left the compost just as it came out of the bag. So I'll have a look at those in a minute, but these ones are really, they're kind of overgrowing their pots, so come close and we'll see what happened. Already, as we discussed in the first video, there was a real difference between the professional product, peat-free, and the retail product, which was the Westland New Horizon. It probably comes across that we were quite disappointed in the product as it came out of the bag, and that remains true to this day. However, we'll look at that in the future, or in a few moments. What we did after the video, the plants, which is this run here, these were grown in the Westland New Horizon peat-free compost. They were so poor, and the growth was so poor, that we said in the last time we will feed them with a foliar feed, which we did. They've had 2 or 3 doses of Miracle Grow over the feed, and it has perked the plants up. They're certainly greener and healthier than they were, and looking like they've got a bit of interest in life. But they are now, I would say, look, a good way behind the comparisons. So New Horizon sort of out of the picture. That was without additional food. That's a no-go. I know a lot of you said to me you had a poor growing season and you used New Horizon. Well, maybe that's why. But as I say, in a few moments we'll look at what can be done about that, and maybe it's not such a tyrant after all. So that remained with the plants grown in peat, which is this one, and then this line, which is the peat-free Sinclair growing media. And as we mentioned before, and these also had the foliar feed, just so we could compare with the thing. There is a difference in the plants. It's not immediately obvious. We spoke before about the heuchera, slightly more green, slightly healthier in there, but as for flowers, look, the peat-free is producing more, if anything. The leaves are just as pretty. The root system, it's good, fibrous, it's all the way through the compost. Let's just compare that to the peat. Very similar on that, very similar performance between the peat and the peat-free media. With the callistemon, these are seed-grown bottle brushes, good healthy root system, lots of nice white roots. That plant's okay in there. Now these thrive in a nutrient poor environment anyway. This is the one in the peat. If anything, the one in the peat-free, my gut feeling about it is it's doing slightly better. but then again, good, nice, healthy root system on there. So given the choice between these, well, peat-free, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? Come to the bedding plant. Now that's an interesting one because he started off very, very similar in the first place, but now there's a clear and definite difference. I know they're not the same, look, they're red and a pink, but they're both Bullseye geraniums. There's a definite difference. This one is the peat. It's got more flowers, it's got more foliage. Let's turn him up. Good, healthy root system in there. It's obviously feeding well, it's growing weeds. You'd be happy with that geranium looking like that, right? Lots of flowers. Using one. This one, even though it's had the foliar feed, it does seem to be a little bit struggling. Root system's okay. It's not as strong as that one for sure. So for whatever reason, it's not so good in that one. However, Hebe, typical easy to grow English Hebe. This is in the peat. Reasonable root system. It's not brilliant. It's okay. It's doing okay. It's nice green healthy foliage. In the peat-free one, you know, it's had a little bit of aphid on there by the look of it. You can see the carcasses. On the peat-free compost, got a really strong root system. It's really doing well. It's growing right through, and the plant's just better. It's more compact, shrubby, sort of compact shape and bushy. So I'm quite pleased with that. That's quite promising. And then on to the tomato. Right, where did we get to? The phone rang and ruined everything. Sorry. So from my point of view, on the tomatoes, these are a real good indicator of what a plant can take out of a compost because they have loads of foliage, which will demonstrate how freely the plants can obtain the nitrogen from the compost. They have, or should have, loads of flowers and also make loads of fruit. So sort of all three things, we'll look at their roots to see how they take out the nutrients from there. They're a real all-round demonstrator, which is why we've used them on the other compost. So let's have a look at these. Certainly got some ripe fruit. This is a variety called Garden Pearl. Absolutely delicious tomatoes. Very good. You'd expect that with tomatoes. A good root system. They'll grow pretty much anything. They're very durable, hardy plants. But the growth is okay. There is a lot of fruit on here. It's a very heavily fruiting variety. It flowers well. And now these pots, they are small for this. This is why we had to make this video today, rather than leave it any longer, because these are going to have to go in a bigger pot if we want to keep them. It's doing okay, but there is a difference, an obvious difference with the tomato that's grown in peat. There is probably, well, have a look, what do you think, 3 times the amount of fruit on there. Let's turn him over carefully. I don't want to lose this, I want to eat these. Real strong root system. Sluggy, can do. It's doing really well, rooted really well into the peat there. Still flowers, there's still fruit to come. For me, that is a clear winner for the peat-based compost over the peat-free. As good as this Sinclair peat-free is, that peat seems to be a winner. In every other way, these have been treated the same. They've had similar watering, they've had the similar foliar feed, nothing else to it. So maybe he's on there. But that's what we looked at. Let's ignore these plants now. Just move them out of the road. Tell you what, there's no point watching me do that. Just pause the video, Caris, and then we'll cut back to
action.
Right, as if by magic we're back. So, these are the tomato plants who were struggling, little whippety little plants. They were desperate for a feed, desperate to be planted in compost. So we did that between the 4 peat-free and then the peat as a traditional one that we've always used in the past. The only one that was a bit late to the game was the Melcourt. I didn't manage to get a back of that until I think it's a week or 2 afterwards. So you'll see there is a difference in the growth size. That's purely because they were planted later. But what I'm going to do, and this is a surprise to me because these are all mixed up, but they are labelled, is I'm going to put each one in front of the bag of compost that it belongs to. And then we can compare and see how things have worked out. So let's just restate that there's 4 plants for each compost. There should be 20 there if I can add up. 2 of them had extra controlled release fertiliser in the little pellets that you sprinkle amongst it, and that's made a massive difference, let me tell you, as we'll see in a moment. Little flies in that one, we'll look at that as well. You see them moving. Ooh, kind of freaking me out. We'll have a look at that, we'll see which compost it is in a minute. Don't zoom in on them. I thought my eyes were going funny. Anyway, there they are. So let's move these plants over, we'll do them one at a time. We'll take the obviously healthy ones first and see where to go. Rooted through. This one, Sinclair Fed. About this one, also Sinclair Fed. Side by side. Looking pretty good. This is the wall compost with the feed. And this one is the Clover Peat with the feed. Is it with the feed? With the feed. Clover with the feed. Save this one. That's the wall with the feed. It's got a tomato on that one. Again, these have been in the same conditions, been watered appropriately together, same light. They had exactly the same amount of feed applied into the compost and mixed in. So and the same variety of tomato in most cases, apart from the Melcourt. So, you know, all of the things being equal, the only difference really is the compost and the feed in the compost. So let's keep going. What's this? Clover. These are the unfed ones. Can you see that I've just written on Clover and Sinclair? Nothing very scientific. But the unfed at the front. What's this one? Sinclair. So the Melcourt, we expected those to be smaller plants.
Go.
We are?
Yeah.
Sorry about that slight delay while the phone overheated. So we've moved the plants in front of the ones we've got, the fed ones first mostly, and now we're going to put these last few. These are still scrappy, look, they're not very good. Melcourt, wall. That's an interesting one. Oh, I'll tell you why I did that one. That one, the plant that was in it actually snapped, and so I had to put her in a replacement. That's what that's doing weird. What's this? Westland New Horizon. You might think no surprises there after we saw that before. That's Melcourt without a feed. The wall. And the Westland without a feed. We've kind of got a very, very similar story to what we had before. The peat, fed or unfed, actually that's doing very well. That's the control. That is what we're used to. That's what's been used in gardening for a long time. That's what's not going to be available, so we're trying to find the best replacement that's more environmentally friendly. The issues with peat are well documented, and you can find them out back for yourself. The Melcourt, this is okay. The ones with the feet in, So these were planted later. The ones without feed, very, very similar performance to the New Horizon. That we already saw that with the other ones, didn't we? The wool compost without feeding. It's grown some interesting mushrooms in them. There's a lot of organic matter in that. And a lot of those flies as well. They seem to like something in there. That may be another consideration for compost, you know, how insects, vine weevils, bugs, scarab fly, how they do it, but that's for another day. You'll notice we're 2 plants short for the New Horizon. Now I'm going to show you this, and this has been the biggest shock, like a revelation. Honestly, I was lost for words. We've made this video once and I had to report it because, wow, I'll show you. Come and look. Westland New Horizon with feed. They are, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, if not the best plants, they are at least comparable to the ones that are grown in peat. They've got fruit on, they've got flowers, loads of lovely, well-fed foliage, and the only difference between these 2 plants here and that is a few grams of control-release fertiliser. That's the only difference between this healthy, vibrant, productive tomato plant and these scrappy things you'll probably throw away and be really disappointed. If it's as easy as that to fix or to improve rather that compost, that's really good, isn't it? And what a difference that's made. I'm genuinely astounded by that. I really didn't think that would happen, and it started to become evident that the feed had made all the difference after just 2 or 3 waterings, and that's a slow release fertiliser. It gradually releases nitrogen and phosphates and potassium into the, it's just a slow one. But it became immediately obvious that that had made a difference. And with all of the peat-free compost, you can see this is in peat-free and they're fed. This is in the Melcourt peat-free. Although they were planted a week or 2 after, you can see the difference that the food has made. The wool compost without the feed, with the feed. The Sinclair, actually this is my favourite peat-free compost. I think I've said that before. The Sinclair, I'm very, very impressed with that. We will, if we can afford it, it's very expensive. That is very promising as a product for the nursery, where we could probably switch straight away on everything we grow to that peat-free, without the issues that we've encountered in the past looking like those. So these are very good. Fed, unfed. The compost comes with a base feed in, but it's not enough to make it looking like that. So I hope that's proved useful for you. The New Horizon is a retail product, $7.99 I believe it is, 2 bags of 14, is that about right? So it's an affordable compost, a 50 litre bag. What I would say though is pick up a bag of a pot of Miracle Grow, either the liquid feed or the control release fertiliser, and use it along with it. And then honestly, that plant there that's in the New Horizon, it's as good as any of the others, if not better than some of them that are in comparable products, and the only difference is that feed. So hopefully that's useful. We are moving on to peat-free compost, whether you like it or not. So we're going to get used to it. I thought this trial might be useful and informative. It's not scientific, it's just sort of the random things that gardeners tend to grow, like tomatoes, like the other things we looked at, and hopefully it will give you a bit of a clue as to things to look out for in the future, especially with regard to the feeding. It does seem to make all of the difference to how good or how bad the compost appears. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope that's useful. See you in the next one.